What's up, Bombshells? Welcome to Bombshell 1111 Podcast, Therapy for Women of Color. My name is Kia, and I'm your host. Generally, podcasts request donations, but I want you to show love by simply subscribing to my social media platforms by visiting my website at www.bombshell1111podcast.com. I want to see thousands of subscribers on this platform. Leave your comments and I'll show love by shouting you out on my social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. I want to thank you for your continued support as always. And with that being said, let's jump into this new episode.
Hey everybody, it's Jen and I am here tonight to drop some bombs here on Bombshell 1111.
Welcome, Bombshells. Welcome back. I'm Kia and I'm your host. Tonight, you guys, will be discussing teen empowerment with our special guest, Jen. So without further ado, Bombshells, let's go ahead and get right into it. Welcome, Jen. How are you?
Hi Kia, it is great to be here. I am doing very well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for coming on and being a part of the
My
podcast.
pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.
So tonight we're going to talk about something fairly different. Most of the time we're talking about specific mental health issues and things like that. But I think tonight is a great topic that we're going to be discussing, which is teen empowerment. I think this is something that is a much needed topic to discuss because the children are the future, so to speak. And and a lot of things that start within our childhood, adolescence, if we kind of can get a grasp on those things in the beginning, it'll help us in our adulthood. So I'm
1000%.
yeah, so I'm happy that you came on, and I can't wait to get into the podcast. So let me start running my mouth. At the beginning of the podcast, I always like for the guests to do a little short description of who they are, what they do, and where they're from, even though I'm going to have that down below in the description box. So Jen, give us a short description, who you are, what you do, where you're from.
Alrighty, I am Jen Canobbio. I am a wife and a mom of two teens of my own. I'm a social worker and an advocate. I'm a licensed psychotherapist in the state of California, and I am an empowerment coach for teens. I have spent my entire adulthood working with youth and families in everything from, hospital settings all the way down to in-home care and everything in between. And I specialize in trauma. I sort of stumbled on it at the beginning of my career. Working with kids in residential treatment, which is just one step below a locked hospital. And it was probably my favorite job of all time, even though kids would try to kill me, kill each other, run away. But I adored them, and I could see, the results of the trauma, and was committed to helping with that healing journey. So all of my work over the years in all these different settings has really been focused on helping youth and families heal from various levels and types of trauma, but especially complex trauma. But about 13 years ago, I was contracting with a very affluent, high-achieving school district. And while I was there, they experienced a suicide cluster, and it was heartbreaking. And I worked round the clock, assessing, planning, hospitalizing, intervening, and it was horrific. It was truly horrific. And it wasn't my first exposure to suicide working with trauma, but working with these youth that everybody looked at as, having it all, and being able to see their pain was just heartbreaking. And I have been an advocate ever since for there to be more social emotional curriculum. People were blaming it on the competition, on high achievement. It wasn't any of that. It was really, truly a lack of resiliency and social emotional
Oh, wow.
curriculum to teach them, how do I deal with these feelings? How do I understand my mindset? How do I shift that mindset, right? How do I reach out for help? So none of this was ever discussed. None of this was taught. Some school districts across the country have gotten better, but we are light years away from it being adequate for what our youth need. So, sorry, it's a long description, but it's been a long road to get here. So the effects of COVID, right, and what I was seeing in my therapy practice, coupled with really, my own teens and watching them and their peers. And then what I really saw is interesting was how much everybody was struggling when they returned to life in person. Those 2 years lacking of that social interaction and growth was crippling. And then you add in the fact that over more than a decade, we've watched the statistics of mental illness with our youth, more than double, right? It's exponential, and it's across all races. It's across all socioeconomic groups. Yeah. And, as a therapist, I love what I do. I'm proud of the skill set that I've cultivated, but I just reached a point where I said, I have to do more. I have to reach more. I can't just tell other people what to do. I need, to be willing to do it myself. So I created this program, starting by identifying teen girls, because they're the ones identified as struggling the most, but certainly boys need it too. And I created a program to educate and empower our youth, because I truly believe teens are the most misunderstood humans around. We treat them like they're a pain in the ass, excuse my language, right? They're drama queens. They're selfish, right? They're just kind of whacked out. They're driven by their hormones, right? All of these myths that from generation to generation we perpetuate. And this is the generation every generation's got their challenges, but they're really the first generation to grow up with the digital stress of constant information and social media and the comparisons. And what is happening biologically, coupled with that digital stress, is just too much. So, I don't believe that it's a coincidence that the majority of mental illnesses are diagnosed and really surface between the ages of 18 to 24. That's the last part of adolescence. So what happens when we actually give these youth the tools to tap into their superpowers for them to thrive rather than just survive these years, which also then sets them up to have a healthy adulthood and raise a healthy next generation? I truly believe we can change the narrative on what it means to be a teenager in America.
Wow, I thank you for that. And I agree with everything you said, totally 100%. Going back to working with teens, like you said, that curse you out and things like that. I did wraparound services. So
love it.
Yeah. And so
that population.
And that was like in the beginning of my career, and I'm in my mid 40s now. And every time that I went to after to apply for a job or just had to talk about a job experience, I would use that job because that was the best job I ever had. I was there for a long time. And again, I don't know, because like you said, sometimes teens, they just want to be heard rather than talked to. And so, I agree with what you said. So let's go ahead and dig right in, because you talked about some good stuff. So for people who kind of don't have an understanding of what we're talking about when we're speaking of empowering a teen, what and why is it important for the parent, guardian, or whomever? Why is youth empowerment so important?
Well, for a lot of reasons. One that I touched on, right? Mental health. If we're not helping them achieve what their brain is trying to help them do, right? Think about just biologically. I hear parents all of the time talking, teachers, caregivers, right? All talking about, right? They're these overgrown kids or they're mini adults. And people don't stop to realize that adolescence, right? That 12 plus years is a unique developmental stage, and it needs to be treated as such. It needs to be understood that it serves a purpose. And other than those first couple of years of life, It is the most rapid growth that we as humans ever experience. So we need to understand biologically what's happening and why, right? We need to understand that the adult brain and the adolescent brain don't function the same. It starts from the bottom up versus the top down. So teens are starting with a survival instinct, right? And then moving up through that very emotional and social part of the brain before they can access the developing part of the rational brain. So they need guidance, but part of the purpose of that adolescent brain is to help them develop their own identity, their sense of self, some independence, because we don't want our kids living in our basement when they're 40 years old, dependent on us, do we? No, we haven't done our job. So we have to give them roots so that they can develop the wings and fly. And that's really what empowering teens is all about, gradually giving them control over choices in their life, right? We don't just hand a 16-year-old the car keys because the law says I can drive now. No, we show them where things are in the car, right? They're in the car with us. We're role modeling our driving habits. We maybe take them to an empty parking lot. They get their permit. We pay for an experienced driving instructor long before we ever give them the solo drive, right? And we don't treat adolescents that way. Right? We treat these kids like, you need to follow my directions. You need to be respectful. Parents and their feelings come into play all the time. That their feelings are valid, but they've got to learn how to manage them if they want to teach their teens how to manage theirs. They don't realize how often they are mirroring what they're getting from their kid, and they're demanding something that they're not even giving their kid. So that is not going to be effective parenting. Parents are going to end up feeling disconnected, frustrated, right? Wanting to throw up their hands, when really we just have to flip that script a little to understand what their kids are needing, what they're expressing. When you've got a 2-year-old having a meltdown, we know that they're dysregulated. They need nurturing. They need comfort. They need rest. They have a need. And we look at teens and we forget that? No. They're dysregulated. If we're not teaching them the skills to self-regulate, why do we expect them to just know how to do it? So I'm all about the education and the understanding of why what's happening, right? The teenage brain is truly, truly setting them up to find passion, right? To develop supportive networking, because as humans, we're hardwired to need connection and a sense of safety, right? They are needing to try new things, right? They're needing to create a world for themselves that's separate from their family. That doesn't mean they don't need their family. And families often confuse that, right? That's why we give them the roots. Parents don't understand how to connect with their teen because they went from being the sweet, agreeable, loving, child to suddenly you want to challenge everything I say. What the hell, right? And they're supposed to be challenging what you say. They're supposed to be looking at it from different angles so that they learn how to be critical thinkers and problem solvers, which sets them up to be able to create a healthy world, to create change, right? We see a lot of times youth, they're on the front lines with advocacy. Why? Because their teenage brain is designed to seek novelty, excitement, and create change. So when we teach them how to do this, some kids will naturally, and some parents, they get it. But in general, we know that teens, in their need to pull away and create their own identity, are also going to listen to novel voices, right? I might say the same thing to a youth that their parents have said for 5 years, and I hate to break it to them, but they're going to listen to me. It doesn't mean they're not hearing their parent, but I'm going to give a different perspective, and even though it's a similar message, they're going to welcome it. I laugh. I've got 2 teenagers of my own. Like, I get it. I live it. And I giggle to myself when my daughter rolls her eyes and goes slamming off to her room. Or my son's like, chill, Ma. I got it. Right? Bruh. And you know what? I breathe. I recognize where it's coming from. I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I don't ever step into it. And I am not bra. I am your mother. But But the reality is I do understand where it's coming from. And many times I have to tell my husband, you need to breathe, go in the other room, give her 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because he'll occasionally, like, he'll read my posts or whatever on social media, and he's like, I think I learned something. I'm like, that's great. Hear it 50 more times and maybe you'll start practicing. But our youth do not want to be problematic, right? They don't want to have all these big feelings that they don't understand, but it's part of adolescence. So how about if we educate them and we equip them with the skills? All of these are skills that are teachable. Teaching resiliency and healthy mindsets, teaching effective communication skills, right? I break it down like a math problem, right? Teaching self-love. I actually start with my program. I start by helping them understand the biology of what's happening and the whys, right? And then I move into understanding their internal worlds and how to develop self-love, because we don't have healthy relationships with our outside world until we have a healthy relationship with our inside world.
Yeah.
So understanding how to listen to those voices in themselves, understanding the pillars of self-love, and teaching them the skills to start to practice it.
I love that. I love that. I love that. You just put a big mirror in my face tonight. Thank you for that. I'm being so serious.
Trust me, I get in front of the mirror myself all the time.
Oh my gosh, because you know what? My daughter, she said some of those things that you just said to me. She said that I don't listen. I don't listen. She said that I don't listen. And I need to sometimes listen from a kid's perspective. That's exactly what she told me.
Yeah. And she's absolutely right. And what I'll say, just
she's 14. She's
just
14.
To put it in a little bit of perspective for you though, Kia, our teens need almost to be treated with kid gloves, not in a condescending way, but in an overly calm, right? Our tone matters, the reflection matters. And I teach these communication skills to the parents too, because it's really where, what I tell people is curiosity and compassion lead to the connection. We don't always have to agree, but that's different than conflict.
Yeah.
And all our kids really want is what we all want. We all as humans want to feel seen and heard and understood. They know we're not always going to agree with them. They know they're not always going to get permission for the things they're asking for.
Right.
They're wanting to not be talked at. They're wanting to be understood.
Yeah.
And when that happens, then they tend to be open to our advice and our insights. But we, again, as humans in all relationships, but because everything is so magnified emotionally for them in the teen years, they really receive that advice before we do those initial steps to really make sure that they're heard and understood and validated. They hear that as, you don't trust me. You don't believe in me, right? And what happens when we think somebody doesn't understand or believe in us? We shut down. We're not listening.
Right.
And then, the power struggles are off to the races. And it doesn't feel good to them or the parents.
Yeah, totally agree.
I give my daughter 5 minutes of space when something triggers her, and she'll come back. I'm really sorry, Mama. I don't even know why I got upset by that. Right? Yeah. It's like, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay. You are entitled to your big feelings. You're not entitled to be disrespectful, right? And a lot of times parents will mistake that as like, oh, so I'm just supposed to let my kid behave a certain way. No, you still have rules. You still have logical consequences. You still have expectations of each other as a family. Yeah. But that's very different than some hierarchy that you're going to behave. You're going to do what I say when I say. All we're going to do is teach teens how to be sneaky.
Yeah. And when you're talking about teaching, that's something that you are in the process of doing, or you are already doing with your services. Tell us about that. Tell us about how the listening audience can get more information about you and get connected to you for services.
Sure. So I am primarily on Facebook, Jen Canobbio Coaching. Same handle, Instagram handle. And I try to post tips and resources for parents because they're really the ones following me, not their kids. But, the teens are certainly welcome to. My website is, again, just Jen Canobbio Coaching, Canobbio. And I have a private Facebook group where I provide live trainings and resources and tips for parents, because I am all about making sure that they have what they need to feel connected, right? And to not feel stressed and frustrated and worried about the choices that their kids are making, right? The more connected we feel, the more confident we are in their skills, because they're feeling confident, because they're feeling prepared and resilient. Suddenly that temperature at home comes down to a really comfortable level.
And so I want to talk about, before we get out of here, your 12-week program.
Yeah, sure,
so I love it. It's thebomb.com. I want you to be able to kind of like let the listening audience know, is this program that you're providing, is this only online? How do one get set up? Tell us about that.
Sure. So I am primarily online because really I'll serve girls globally. The very first parent who reached out to me was in Sweden. So, I want to be as available to as many girls as possible, right? I'm really trying to create a movement here. So online is the best delivery system to reach as many as possible. And because their social brain is so important during this stage, and they learn well from each other, right? I set it up in groups. I will serve girls really from 11 or 12, depending on the individual, up through their early 20s. And so I divide them sort of based on where they are in that adolescent journey. And I provide twice weekly live coaching with them. They receive video learning modules. I try to break those up. So for instance, the one on self-love, right? That's week 2 and 3. And I break it up into small videos that they can binge watch. They can watch in small doses. They can go back and rewatch, right? There's access. I attach, some extra things like some mindfulness exercises or some PDFs, right, to support some of the skills that I'm teaching. And so it's 8 learning modules over the course of 12 weeks. The questions during the live coaching don't have to correlate to any particular video. It's actually an open enrollment, so the girls don't even have to be at the same place with where they are in the videos to all still benefit from it. And then I also have a private group that only the girls have access to, and I post the recordings of all our coaching sessions so that, again, they have that for reference, or if they had to miss it, they can ask me questions ahead of time. If they know, oh, I've got a soccer game, I can't make it this week. You know what? That's okay. If you've got particular questions or concerns, let me know, and I'll be sure to still address it during the coaching call for you to go back and watch. And I'm putting together monthly workshops with other experts in different, very specific areas, right? So I've got a nutritionist. I've got somebody who does like trauma-informed yoga. I've got a holistic esthetician who has a program about teaching girls how to care for their skin from the inside out, right? Specific to adolescent needs. So, and I'm trying to find somebody. I actually have a colleague I'm trying to convince to do it. She works with parents, and I'm like, no, you can adapt this for the teens. I promise, I'll help you. Around digital dependency, right? And how to create healthy boundaries with our screens. So anyway, always evolving, always adding to it. And then girls also have the option of staying in the group coaching even once they've completed the 12 weeks, just because we know that reinforcement and that accountability is really necessary for those skills to become true habits.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that is so great. That is so great. And so Jen, and congratulations as well. Jen, can you let the listening audience know how they can get connected to you for this program and for your services, or just for more information?
Absolutely. So the best thing to do is either go to my Facebook page and join my private group for parents and caregivers, where I provide, just free resources and trainings on a variety of topics. I let the parents vote on what topic is most pressing for them. I have one actually tomorrow on working with the unmotivated teen who doesn't like school, right? And things that parents can do to help support them. So they can find Jen Canobbio Coaching on Facebook. It's actually called Teen Toolbox for Girls. And my website is jencanobbiocoaching.com, or they can email me at jen@jencanobbiocoaching.com.
And so, Jen, before we get out of here tonight, is there anything you feel that I missed that you'd like to share with the listening audience?
Girl, I could talk on this for hours. There's no way for us to not miss something. All I will say is we, as a society, are teaching teens that they are somehow not enough. That is not our intention, but that is the message that more often than not they are receiving, and we reinforce. We have the ability to change that narrative, to change their view and their relationship with themselves and everybody around them so that they can be confident, healthy, amazing superhumans and raise the next generation of superhumans.
Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for coming on and being a part of the podcast. And
it's been a pleasure.
Yes, thank you. And so, you guys, that brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks to Jen for joining us. We hope that you were able to hear something that was beneficial to you. And with that being said, thanks for listening. And always remember, you are a bomb within your own shell. Peace, love, and light, you guys. Until next time, good night. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate, review, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some valuable information that can help you on your personal journey. Also, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Bombshell1111 or at Bombshell1111 TV. You can also check out our mental health page, Your Health is Your Wealth, on Facebook, which is a page created to inform and support individuals with mental health and other health conditions. And with that being said, always remember, you guys, you are a bomb within your own shell. And until next time, peace, love, and light.